Chapter 23. I woke with a start in the middle of the night. The moment of panic caused by waking in a strange environment. My plain room and unfamiliar surroundings finally registering that I decided to try out my new pad. Or is it cell? We practiced the power till late in the night, each of us taking turns challenging each other. Everyone was being fairly nice and not giving me anything too difficult. Zoo was the most impressive by far. His control was incredible. His abilities seemed effortless. His most impressive trick was to take a stack of quarters and melt them in midair. He then separated out the layers of zinc and copper and floated them gently to the floor as perfectly polished metal marbles. Daniel quickly pulled them into his hand to feel them and verify that they were still real. He eventually let me have the copper one, and I was playing with it now as I walked back out into the main area. Normally, in my apartment when I cannot sleep, I work the piano a bit to clear my mind. As I slid onto the bench and popped up the cover, something hot and wet slid up my leg. I may have pooped a little. Since I didn't expect anyone to be up, I didn't bother turning on the lights, so it took me several seconds to recognize the furry black Shadrach sitting next to me by the piano. Looking perfectly normal, head cocked slightly to the side as if inquiring about my activities at this late hour. "As much as I'm glad to see you feeling better, buddy," I said, "I just don't know you well enough to go around licking each other yet." The dog was unfazed by my reaction and sat down next to the bench. "Fair enough. What should I play?" As if trying to communicate an answer, or maybe tell me how dumb I really sounded, the dog tilted its head a bit to the side, looking up at me. "Don't you give me that country music look. You know I hate country." I started into the Titanic theme, which is soft and sad, easy to play but still beautiful. Shadrach got comfortable beside me and drifted off to sleep. Not 2 minutes later, I heard footsteps in the main area of the room. "Well, what you doing up so early?" Daniel asked, rubbing his eyes. "And why'd you take my dog? I can't sleep without my dog." "I would never take your dog. I think he just wanted to ask me to play him something. Do you know what kind of music he likes?" Daniel just looked back at me with a confused and irritated look on his face. "He's a dog. He doesn't have a favorite music." "Oh, I think that's debatable," I replied. "Let's see how he does with some good old-fashioned rock and roll." I blended into Hotel California from the Eagles. We both looked down at the dog. No response. "Maybe not rock and roll then," I said as Daniel shook his head. Changing the subject, I asked, "Are you okay after what happened yesterday?" He took a deep breath and sighed. "Yeah, it felt good to finally use the power again for something besides just games. I couldn't believe I lifted those cars so high. They were probably 20 feet in the air, you know." I saw them, and they were nowhere near 20 feet. 10 feet at most, but I let it go. "I won't go back there. They will have to restart me first." He was looking down at his stump, massaging it with his good hand. "I can still feel my hand sometimes. Like if I wanted to, I could still move my fingers. Then I look down and there's nothing there, and I remember." I missed several notes as I felt it choking deep inside. The constant reminder of such a terrible life experience must be overwhelming. My eyes filled with tears as I saw my own hands moving freely across the keys, and I wondered what I would do if I lost one. I would rather lose my sight than my hands. Daniel was lost in thought, his mind a million miles away from anywhere good. "Looks like we did a pretty bang-up job getting your puppy back together," I said, breaking up the sharp silence from the tortured soul next to me. He looked up at me, eyes wet, and wiped his nose on his sleeve. "You did that, Finn. You were great. I couldn't have done that, not with the bullets flying everywhere." "No, we did that," I said with a snap. "There was no saving Shadrach if someone hadn't been protecting me. I'll take credit for saving the puppy if you take credit for saving me. Deal?" Daniel hesitated and then spun and wrapped me in a bear hug from behind. He was shaking a little. I couldn't play anymore, and not just because one of my arms was pinned. For someone who likes to splash around in the shallow end, I felt myself getting dragged deeper and deeper, and not fighting it either. After several seconds, he finally let go and plopped down beside me. "So, what do we do till everyone wakes up?" Daniel asked with a mischievous smile. "Nope, nothing crazy. I'm afraid of Nella. You can just wipe that trouble right off your face right now," I said with an air of certainty. "Oh, relax, Finn. She's all hot air anyway. Besides, what can she do?" "To you? Not much, I suppose. To me? Plenty. Remember, she actually likes you. And you saw how she uprooted those huge trees and crunched those guys? She's powerful." "Yeah, but she's also very careful," Daniel was quick to reply. "She doesn't make mistakes with the power, and her focus is almost as good as Zoo's." Indeed, her focus was extremely acute, especially with a 12-gauge shotgun in her hand. "How many people has she killed? How many fallen?" "Restarted, you mean? And I don't really know. I've only been here for almost 2 years, and in that time, we've only been attacked 3 times. The first 2 are pretty bloody, though. I can remember seeing lots of bodies, but most of them were killed because of their careless shooting. One car blew up when the driver went to throw a grenade at us. Nella superheated his glove, which made him drop the grenade mid-throw, and it fell back into the car. Boom! The whole car blew up, and all the people died. It didn't blow up like in the movies, though. No flames or anything. I was a little disappointed." Daniel continued with a description of a literal battle scene, just like I imagined a war would be. He was not conflicted at all about seeing them die. It made me wonder who was screwed up here, him or me. Can't be me. I'm just such a normal guy. "Daniel, did Nella tell you how they found us?" I was curious as to whether he agreed with her assumption that I was guilty, albeit through ignorance and naivete. "Yeah, that girl tracked your phone. That's why we don't use them here." I pulled out my phone and still had no signal. "Well, the other reason is probably that your reception here sucks." "No," Daniel replied. "There's some shielding or something built into the walls and ceiling so no signals can get in or out." I wondered how many messages I had missed. He finally yawned, and I took the opportunity to cut off the storytelling and usher him back to the couch to sleep. "You need your sleep, kid. Come on, Shadrach, over here." I called the dog to the couch. He got up unsteadily and limped a bit, but resumed his spot beside the boy. "You want me to play you something till you fall asleep?" He just nodded and pulled a blanket over him. Good kid. I walked back to the piano and played some soft Bach. Good for calming a tired boy, and hopefully for sorting this jumble of conflicts that is keeping me up at 5 a.m. The problem now was Tiffany. It was certainly possible that she was being used just like I was. She definitely seemed to be more trapped than a typical person in a dead-end job with an overbearing boss. Nella's intuition told her that Tiffany was evil and couldn't be trusted. My intuition told me the opposite. Of course, my intuition was also very interested in her short skirt. Part of me desperately wanted to get this sorted out with her, and another part of me was still freaked out by seeing someone's head separated from their body. At some point, I caught some movement in my peripheral vision. Nella was walking over to check on Daniel. I had been playing for almost an hour, even though it had seemed like just a few minutes. "Can't sleep, I assume," Nella said, walking back to the piano. "You don't seem like the up early type." "Too true. I just needed to sort some things out, and I don't think I'll be able to sleep well till I do." "I've been sorting things out for the last 20 years. Good luck, kid." Not exactly the ringing endorsement I was hoping for. "Tell me, Nella, what's with the blocked cell phones here? Daniel said it was something about shielding in the walls. Is that some trick using the power of creation?" "No, although it's probably possible. We built a Faraday cage into the walls. Do you understand how they work?" Oh, sure. They're not too complicated. That makes sense, actually." "Good, because I don't understand any of it. That's why we don't have to worry about them tracking us here with your phone. Of course, as soon as you step out of here, you will be targeted again. Still doubt me about them using you to get to us? No offense, Nella. I just have to connect the dots myself. That's not to say that I don't appreciate the heads up that they might track me with my phone. At least I can be careful now. Speaking of which, I need to check to see how many messages I have. I have a sister that tends to panic if I fall out of contact unexpectedly. She still thinks I have mentally cracked up after I quit my high-paying job and decided to live above a coffee shop in downtown Philadelphia. Sure. Use the wall phone, she said, pointing to the kitchen wall, and memorize the number so you can contact us if necessary. I called my voicemail and sighed as it said I had 7 messages. Shit. I probably had over 30 text messages. No chance of checking those on this 1980s wall phone. To my surprise, they were all from Tiffany. The first 2 were just short and fun, wanting me to call back. The third and fourth got consecutively more panicked as she realized that something was probably wrong. She sounded to be crying in the fifth, and the last 2 were hang-ups, presumably from her as well. Or maybe I had missed my chance at Publisher Clearinghouse and my $1 million jackpot. Thanks, Nella. These new details further confused the facts. If Tiffany was actually expecting me to answer, then she probably didn't expect me to be used for target practice by the hunter goons. Admittedly, one of my worst faults is my impatience. I would rather bull charge than waiting out an opponent. Waiting around till things sorted themselves out was not an option. I needed to resolve this now. Nella, I announced, I need to go and clear some things up. Until I know for sure if Tiffany is part of this, I cannot be here endangering everyone. Nella mulled it over and didn't immediately reject the idea. Instead, she offered, Finn, let's give it one more day of training. You can go tomorrow and I will take you myself. I don't really think I can wait that long. Patience is not my strong suit. Oh, I think it will be worth your while. I spoke with Zoo and we believe you are ready to do some real defense. We will start gun training this morning. Based on how well you advanced with our games last night, you should be able to deflect bullets by sundown. Every boy dreams of deflecting bullets, so it was an easy choice to wait on Tiffany, no matter how long her legs were. Okay, Nella, when do we start?